Or okay. Okay, Shalom Chevra, good evening. We are going to start from the Gemara on Daf Lamed Aleph. About the parts of that, some Zachar, Para, and Chaydesh, and the order and when we read them and what falls out on what Shabbos. I'm sorry, when Rosh Chodesh, then the earlier Shabbos. Then we Parsha Zachar before Rosh Chodesh, the earlier Shabbos. So the Mishnah said, Shachal is the Shabbos. On Shabbos, kind of Parshas Shachal. We're talking about Shachal is beside Shabbos, like Dimon Shabbos. That's focusing right now. Only second Shabbos, like Dimon Shabbos. If it falls out on Friday, Rav then you go. Rav says you go back almost a full week to the Shabbos before that. The Shmuel says no, you go to the first Shabbos in Adar, which is, let's say, Beis Adar or Alpha Adar, the two of them. Fine. Rav Makdim the came about who you may shulchanos. If we said, remember the last Gemara Chav Testament Beis, we said that the reason why I don't know if it's Chav Testament Beis. Yeah, Chav Testament Beis, the top, it says that the reason why we go back, why we lane Shkalim Machlal, was so that people can get a heads up on changing the Shkalim, and it's 2 weeks from when the Chaver come out with the tables. So Rav is concerned if you're going to push it off a day, if Shabbos, if Chodesh falls out on Friday, you're going to lane only on Shabbos, you're going to have 1 day less, 2 weeks, 2 weeks less 1 day of time to get your money together. Shmuel Amam Achin, because he says we're not worried about that. Why? Because so Mikla v'Shulchanis Nami v'Chashon Zanafki ad Chad b'Shabbos the Shabbat. So he says very geschmack. If you do the math, if Rosh Chodesh falls out on Shabbos, which means that the money guys are not going to come out on Shabbos to do the money change. They're going to come out for Sunday. So anyway, you have the same 15 days. Therefore, you do it later. The doing it later, according to Shmuel, what's the Maya doing it later? Because like this is no heftik in Parshas. If you do it earlier, then that Shabbos is nothing. Now Shmuel also agrees that if it's a few days before Shabbos, if it was beferish, then of course you have to go back and you have a gap because you don't have a break. But in the case where I can get away with it, I don't have a break. That's Shmuel's thought. Now, Shabbos, we're going to ask the Kasha on Shmuel. Chali b'seich Shabbos, Magdim l'Shavar, u'mafsikin l'Shabbos acheres. U'mafsikin l'Shabbos acheres. You make a Shabbos again. So Chali b'seich Shabbos, Magdim l'Shavar. You go back a Shabbos, u'mafsikin l'Shabbos acheres. My love of Shabbos. This our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says mitaych, so it means during that week. So the Gemara wants to make an idea, even on it's technically within the week of it's during the week. You should go to Shabbos, which that's what our Mishnah says. If the Gemara b'seich Shabbos dafka in the middle of Shabbos, but if it's the end, then it's lav dafka. Tashma for the Gemara is Shabbos Shina. What's the first Shabbos of the Seder of the Parshias? Kol shechavish chadash adar liyas b'seicha. Any Shabbos, any week that falls, the Rosh Chodesh falls out to be in it, the Afilu b'Erev Shabbos, and even if it falls out on Erev Shabbos, that whole week is the first Shabbos of the Kriya. So you see that even Erev Shabbos, it goes back to previous Shabbos, because the Mishnah, the Gemara says, Ezel Shabbos Shana. What's the first week of the 4 Shabbos, which is Shabbos Shkalim, Parsha Shkalim, Aliyas Pesach. Any time the Rosh Chodesh falls out during the following week, and about we understand it now. Any time during the week, you go back. So my lab, I feel about Erev Shabbos. What does that mean? Domi Deseicha. The same way it's Beseicha, it's Erev Shabbos. Ma Seicha, Ma Teicha, Makdiman after Erev Shabbos Makdiman. Right, that the Gemara makes sense. I'm a Shmuel read it, but so let's read it again. Shmuel wants to read it. Is that Shabbos Rishayna? Which is the first Shabbos of the four parashas? Any Shabbos that Rosh Chodesh falls out in it, that's the first Shabbos. Nafilu Erev Shabbos, and even Erev Shabbos, even Erev Shabbos, which is exactly like Shmuel learns that if it's Erev Shabbos, it gets pushed off to the next Shabbos, to the next. Now again, this is reading would not obviously work with Rab. So that's how Shmuel reads it, and that's how Rab reads it. And that's how they learned in Shmuel's yeshiva. Ba, they learned the Mishnah, they learned that brisa with the word ba, not b'seicha. Ketanai, I think I skipped. Hold on. Okay, so Tashma is Tashma is b'shayna kol shchal v'shchal shchal b'yes b'seicha apilu b'erev Shabbos. Shabbos dem d'chtzech matzech v'chdin af Shabbos v'tim. Amar Shmuel ba. V'chein tam Shmuel ba. As Zog Gemara Ketanai, it's machlekes Tanaim. This machlekes Rav and Shmuel is not a new thing. It's I did skip. Hold on one second. I just jumped to the next slide. No, okay, fine. We're good. Fine. Ketanai. The Sargim, the Shabbos, it's a machlekes Tanam if we make hafsekim in the Shabbos in the four Shabbosim. Rabbi Yehuda, we make. So Rabbi Yehuda says we make a hafsek. This is Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. We do not make any breaks. When do I say he qualifies the statement? When do I say that's only if it falls on Erev Shabbos. We see he held like Shmuel, because when Shmuel Erev Shabbos, then I'm not Misagim, but otherwise I am Misagim. And Rabbi says Misagim lechatchila. Rabbi says you always go back. Rabbi says again. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says you go back even if it falls out on Erev Shabbos. The machlokes really sounds like it's machlokes Rav and Shmuel in only Erev Shabbos. Fine. Even though, again, like we said in our Mishnah, he said even Shmuel ben Elazar says that if it falls out in the middle of Shabbos, I don't have a choice anymore, and then I am a sagam, then I do have breaks, and I lane the first Shabbos is going to be in Shvat, the next Shabbos is going to be a break, and then the second, then the third, fourth, and Shabbos will follow. So we learned that the second is Parsha Zachar. So the machlek is Rav and Shmuel. Itma Purim shechal yes be'erev Shabbos. If Purim Yudalit falls out on Erev Shabbos, Rav makdim Parsha Zachar. Rav says that you have to be makdim Parsha Zachar to the previous Shabbos. V'Shmuel Amamachan. Shmuel says you lean on the 15th, which is also Purim. It's a Shushan Purim, and you Machan. Rav makdim kihechet like take the Masil Zachira. Rav says that it has to be. It says that they took the days. What's the Lashon? The Karim Ulasim. A second. I couldn't remember these words. I just here the Skarim Benasim. That's the Vayam Ma'il and the Skarim Benasim. Now, even though the Skarim usually means the Megillah, but it's referring to being Zecher Mechias Malek, which you yaitze by Parsha Zachar. So we don't want the Asiyah to be before the Schira, because the Schira is mentioned first in the Pasuk in the Megillah. So if you're going to do the days of Purim, all the mitzvahs, again, it bothers me a little because I'm laying the Megillah anyway on Purim, so I don't know why it's a problem of the Sinyan, but this is Vashita. Even because you have people that are laning on the 15th anyway, it comes out that they're laning and they're doing the Schira and the Asiyah together. Now again, that makes a lot of sense because according to Rav doesn't like this. Rav doesn't want to do this because he wants to be dafka predated, which would help why he doesn't like the Megillah. Also, it doesn't help that the Megillah is by Bayayim. He wants dafka before. B'shniya Zachar. The second week is Zachar. B'haki mikla v'shiach b'Shabbos. When Chodesh falls out on Shabbos, mikla Purim b'erev Shabbos. Then Purim falls out on erev Shabbos. V'katani b'shniya Zachar, and you see again the Mishnah is talking about a case. Right? Karim Pasha Shkalim. B'chalias b'seicha Shabbos within the Shabbos miskin umafsikin the Shabbos acheres. B'shniya. Now the Gemara's havamim is that this b'shniya is going in the first in the Reisha. That when Chodesh falls out on Shabbos, And then the second Shabbos is Parsha Zachar, and that's going to be a problem. No, B'Shniya Zachar, Mikla Purim B'Erev Shabbos. B'Katani B'Shniya Zachar. We see that B'Shniya Zachar. So what do we see? We see like Rav. We see like Rav because it's a second Shabbos, and we don't push it back. We don't push it up to the next Shabbos like Shmuel. We go backwards a week like Rav. Amar Papa, my Shniya L'Hafsaka. After the Hefsek, the second Shabbos. Fine. That's our Papa, and so he said it's not a problem. So it's Shkalim, Hefsek, and then Zachar, which works according to Shmuel also. Tashma Zeh Shabbos Shniya Kol Shechal Purim Liyas B'Seicha Vafilu B'Erev Shabbos. So the same idea we had before. This is a kasha on Shmuel because any week when do you lay in Parsha Zachar? Any week that Purim falls out in that week, even Friday. So again, it sounds like if it falls out at any point during the week, even Friday, we go back to Shabbos. My love Erev Shabbos don't need the Seicha. My Seicha Makdimin Av Erev Shabbos Makdimin. So right, that's Gemara's kasha. That the whole week goes backwards to the previous Shabbos. I'm a Shmuel Ba. The same answer. That it doesn't mean b'seicha. It means kol shuash kol shechal purim liyas ba. If Purim falls out on Shabbos, then you lay in it. But if you ever Shabbos, then it gets pushed up to that Shabbos. In other words, and not going back like Rav. The same time in the Shmuel Ba. And that's the talking Shmuel's yeshiva, but Chali is b'Shabbos atzma Amar Rav Huna the Re'akol Makdimin. If it falls out on Shabbos, this is not like what I said because I said that Rav wouldn't have a problem with Niskar and Manasseh happening at the same time. Okay, so I don't fully understand why he has a problem with why is the Megillah not good enough for that issue. The Re'akol Makdimin. Rav Nachman Amar Adayin he machlekes again. Rav Huna the Re'akol Makdimin. Rav Huna says that when Purim falls out, when Yudal falls out on Shabbos itself. There's no machlekes. Everybody holds you read it by bayan. Rav Nachman Amar Adayin he machlekes. There's still machlekes. Itmanami Amar B'chia Ba'aba Amar Rav Abba Amar Rav Purim Shechal Liyas B'Shabbos Makdimin Mekar B'Shabbos Asher Avra B'Zachar. So you see Taka that according you see the Farish Brisa that Rav says not a Brisa, but we see a member that Rav says that even when Purim falls out Yudal falls out on Shabbos. You still go back. So I'm not sure halacha ma'aseh what we do, but yeah, right. B'shlishi paraduma tanu rabbanan zehu Shabbos shlishis kol shesmucha lepurim me'achara. The week right after Purim, the Shabbos right after Purim. Itmar Recham Bachanina Amar Shabbos hasmucha v'shchedesh nisan. Not like that. He says that it's seemingly a machlekes that he says it's the first Shabbos. It's the Shabbos closest to V'shchodesh Nisan. But like pligi, hard the ikli V'shchodesh Nisan b'Shabbos, hard the ikli b'emtze Shabbos. He said it's not really machlekes. There's two ways of looking at it. If V'shchodesh, they're talking about two different scenarios. If V'shchodesh falls out, if V'shchodesh Nisan falls out on Shabbos, then you get pushed back to 1 week before, which is the closest week to Shabbos. And if it's not during Shabbos, because all you need is 1 week in advance, and that's not the closest week to Purim, that's the week closest to Rosh Chodesh. But if Rosh Chodesh falls out anytime not on Shabbos, then you go back another week, which is the closest week to Purim, because you need at least a full week, because you need 7 days to be tar. So they want to give you a week in between. So if it's going to be in the middle of the week and I just go back to the previous Shabbos, I only have 3 days until Rosh Chodesh, and that's not enough time. Zogt the Gemara back. Bervius hachodesh lechem Tana Rabbanan Chodesh ad Chodesh b'Shabbos karnik hisisa umaftirin behayada ve'zeu hi Shabbos v'shayna kol shechav Chodesh ad Liyas b'Seicha afilu b'erev Shabbos. That this memory out of it. B'shniya zachar maftirin b'pakadati ve'ezu hi Shabbos shniya kol shechal purim Liyas b'Seicha. Right? Afilu b'erev Shabbos v'shlishis para aduma. This is a long Bryce, and the Gemara is going to keep on. I think this Bryce, the Gemara keeps interrupting it. No, I think it's another. Fine. V'zeu Shabbos shniya kol shechal purim liyas b'seicha afilu b'erev Shabbos v'shlishis para aduma maftirim v'zacharti aleichem v'zeu Shabbos shlishis kol shesmucha lepurim me'achara b'revius hachodesh zeh maftirim kol yamar Hashem elikim b'rishon b'echad hachodesh v'zeu Shabbos revius kol shechal v'shchodesh nisan liyas b'seicha v'afilu b'erev Shabbos. So the Gemara just goes through every single Shabbos, what we lane and what the landmark in time is. we're looking for Rish Chodesh, wherever it's Rish Chodesh. Other the week before that's going to be Shkalim. Wherever it's Rish Chodesh, whenever it's Purim, the week before Purim, we do Parsha Zachar. The week before Paraduma, the week before. Well, it's the week after Purim, or again the week before Shchodesh, depending on when Shchodesh falls out, is going to be Parshas Para, and Hachodesh Hazeh is the week of Shchodesh. The week the Shabbos before Shchodesh Nisan. The Chamishas plays in the Chassidron. The Mishnah says that the fifth week the fifth week of the cycle is that we return to the original, to the normal seder. But the mother seder might to what seder? Rav Ami Amar the seder Parshias we're mafsik. According to Rav Ami, we take over the entire laning with the Dalit Parshas, and we're chayzer back to the normal Parshas. Rav Yirmi Amar the seder Haftarah Chayzer. That we only hijack these Parshas only hijack the Haftarah, and we go back to the regular Seder of Taurus. The Seder of Ami Mistavet. It's Mistavet that we took over all the parshas and we have to reinstate or go back to a Seder of parshas. Why? The Tan, I call Mafsikin, the end of the you would think that includes also the days, because we also talk about we're talking about that it's mafsek even during the week laning, right? That's what it's referring to. So it makes sense if you say that all these lanings, Chanukah, Rosh Chodesh, Purim, Tainus, Me'adis, would stop the parshas because this parshas in the Chol. There's no haftarah in the Chol that it's being oiker that we have to return to. So how does that make any sense to say that it's talking about the haftarah only? Okay, something about right there. The Gemara answers. It stops the haftarah during Shabbos and during the week. It doesn't do anything. In other words, it's not referring to during the week. With Tainus, why do we need a Tainus to be mafsik the normal laning, the Yad Yama laning? Likri mitzafra ben Yana Diyama or b'mincha b'tanisa. So let's just do a simple. Let's do like this. We lane by mincha anyway on a tainus. So why don't we do in the morning? Let's lane the regular sheni v'chamishi laning, and on a tainus, let's lane. Then we'll do, and then by mincha we'll do the tainus the laning. Messiah the Ravuna. We want to bring the right to Ravuna. The Ravuna mitzafra kinufra. Kinufia. In the morning they used to make a whole bahala, and they didn't even do laning. They used to have like a whole nother seder hayayim, and there was no laning in the morning, so therefore there was no laning in the morning to do Yana Diyama, so it's considered a hatzek because we're only going to do mincha, and we're going to have to do a tiny stick of laning. Hechi abdinan. So what they do? Amar Abaye mitzvah for the palgay. The first half of the day, the mitzvah for the palgay the in the morning until half the day ma'ayin in the middle of the masa. Everyone used to be ma'ayin in their midas and what they did wrong in their averis. Mipagad the lepanya river. From half the day on, Riva the Yama Kari Mafter, they would lay mincha the first quarter of the day and do mafter. And then they would daven, and then they would have their other tefillas. Shenam vayikru b'sefer Torah Hashem Elokeim revias hayam, or revias hayam misvadim mishachdim. So you see that there was a kriya a quarter of the day, and there was a quarter of a day that there was mishachdim and a more intense davening. Maybe it's the other way around. And then what so you see that until the first half of the day references the minchas erev, until the mincha time, which is the first half of the day, which is referring to being a more of like an intense tinus and tshuva like activities. Of Minchas Erev, Kamti Matanisi, and from Mincha and on, I got up for my tinus. Now that's what they didn't fast. I think they fasted the whole day, but the whole that part of the avodah was done in the first half of the day. Look at the Mishnah, right? The Pesach, in the Parshas Ma'ad, Shal Taira, Shataris Kahan. It's only, I think, passing the second day of it, but it's in Parshas Emma, the Parshas Ma'ad is Ba'atzara Shiva Shavais. Rosh Hashanah b'Chodesh Shvi b'Chodesh b'Yom Kippurim Achri Ma'is b'Yom Tov Rishon Shachag Kared Parshas Ma'ades Shivataris Kahana Ub'Shar Kol Yomais Chag b'Karban Zachag b'Chanukah b'Nesiyim and B'Chanukah we lay in the Parshas Nesiyim Purim b'Yom Amalek Rosh Chadashim Rosh Chachechem b'Mamadais b'Ma'aser Rishis. The Mamadais is again when the Kohanim and Levim are doing their avodah, there's a delegation of the Israelim that are standing there to be involved. And part of the avodah they do is they lane they have mamalis and they lane ma'aser reishos. The time is brachas with klaus. They lane the teichcha. Sorry, they don't. That's not teichcha. It's brachas and klaus. No, maybe it is. It's I think is the okay. I'm not sure. It might be the teichcha. It might be something else. Some reference to something else. Fine. Aim. I think it is talking about the teichcha. Aim hafsikim b'klaus. We do not make a hafsik by klaus. We'll see what that means. Achad kares kulam. Well, one person lanes the entire. One person gets the entire aliyah, and they don't stop in the middle. B'shein b'chamishi b'shabbos b'mincha karin k'sidron. You lane the regular order of the parasha, and it does not take away, which means that from Shabbos you start from scratch. You don't say I lane until Sheni Shlishi Revi during the week. We start from there. You start from the beginning on Shabbos. This is the Shemar is referring to the other parasha that we said. All has to do with the Yom Tovim. That's from this pasuk we learn out that you should learn that you should lane on that day. What's negated to that Yom Tov. Tanar Banim. The Brayso is going to go through a bunch of different times we lane, and where do we lane from? The different machlekes in the Pesach Karim and Parshas Mayades Maftir and Pesach Gilgal. Now that we have 2 days after Yom Kama Pesach Gilgal, Ulamachar Pesach Yeshiyah. Different parts of Nach that Nevi'im that deal with different Pesachim at different times. Pesach Malakit the Karim Inyan Pesach different Inyanim have to do with Pesach Mahi Amar Papa Ma'apu Siman, which is Ma'apu Siman. Rashi brings it down. Give me 1 second. Here. It says Mishko Chulachem Tzayin in Kesef Talva as Ami B'Salacha V'Yidav V'Shabbalescha V'Yamtiv Sheni Karin Mishin Shor Kevas. So that's what Papa holds. Yamtiv Achron Shal Pesach Karin V'Hi B'Shalach Maftir and V'Yidav V'David. On the Machar and Simchas Torah, it's Kol B'Char Yulain Kol B'Char Maftir and Ayda Yad. Amar Abaye. This Ayda Yad is referring to. No, this is complex. Fine. Amar Abaye v'idna nog alma lemikri mishach Torah kadish b'kasba pasal b'madra shalach bucha. This is the 8 different kriyas that we do, and it's azay. B'shalach is hold on. V'idna here mishach is parshas b'shalach. Hold on. This is okay. I don't have a place where he said. Oh, over here. He says here. Meshach is Mishru. Torah is Shari Keves. Kaddish V'Kaspa is Kaddish Kol B'Char. Pasal B'Medbara is Pasal is. I think I skipped over here. Hold on. Pasal is. Pasal is Kesef Talva. No, here. Oh, sorry. In the Kaddish, Bekaspa is Bekaspa is Kesef Talva. Pasal is Pasal L'cha, and Bamidbara is is the parsha of B'midbar. It's talking about Pesach Shemini. But Tzeres, and then I'm sorry, I skipped one. B'midbar Shalach Buchra is B'Shalach and Kol B'char. Okay. B'Atzeres Shiva Shavuos Maftirin B'Chabakok. Achim Ayman B'Chaydesh Shlishi Maftirin B'Merkava. And we do it the other way around. The first day we do B'Markava, and the second day we do Chabakok. B'Rosh Hashanah, B'Chodesh Hashvi Maftir and Haben Yaakov Yefraim. B'Yesh Ayim B'Hashem Paket Asar Maftir Mechana V'Idna the Ikka Trei Yomi Yoima Kama Kiesh Ayim B'Machav V'Lekim Nisa Es Avram Maftir and Haben Yaakov. So it's the same idea. It's just backwards. V'Yom Kippur Karim Achrei Mais Maftir and Kikayim Ram V'Nisa. B'Mincha Karin B'Arayis, we learn the parsha of Arayis by Mincha. Maftir and B'Yoina, and we're maftir, and we do maftir by Yoina, and we do the story of Yoina by maftir. Rabbi Yechon and Kol Makom She'atem Ma'itzik V'Rosh Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Rabbi Yechon is going to expand on the pasuk that we just had of Kikayim Hashem Rav Nisa. It's going to be one of the pasukim that he dashed. Rabbi Yechon Kol Makom She'atem Ma'itzik V'Rosh Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Atem Ma'itzik V'Nasek. Davar Zeh Kasav V'Tayra. It's written in the Torah. V'Shanu B'Nabiyim. It's repeated in the Nabiyim. Mishlosh b'ksuvim, and it's in ksuvim as well. Because of it, ki Hashem elikechem hu elikim ba'adani adainim. You see, Takash Baruch Hu, he's the king. He's the one in charge. He's the top. He's busy making sure that Yasam Amana are taken care of. The lowest in society, just the least prominent. Shanam ben Nevi'im. It's repeated in Nevi'im. Kayamar Ram Benisa Sheikhan Ad V'Kadosh. This is the passage that we just said to be laying on Yom Kippur. No. Yeah. So he said, "Navim Chamesh Mamanisa Sheikhan Ad V'Kadosh V'Ksiv Basrei V'Ezdaka Ushval Ruach HaKadosh hangs out with the lowly and the broken. Mishulash V'Ksuvim V'Ksiv Sayu L'Reichev Ba'Araves B'Kashemai praise the ones who again also very high in the shyness L'Reichev Ba'Araves, the one who rides in the high places. Uksiv Basrei Avi Yisayim V'Dayin Amanis. Also, he's fathers Yisayim and deals with the amanis. Yom Tov Rishon Shachag Kain b'Parshas Mayadais. The Gemara continues right there. Yom Tov Rishon Shachag Kain b'Parshas Mayadais. Shabbatais Kahanim. Maftir and Hina Yom Ba Lashem. Idna the Ikka Trayamina. We have 2 days. The Macha Mikra Hachi Nami Karinan. After Yomai Maftir. So what do? We lay in the same thing. We lay in the same thing again. But what do we? We lay the same thing both days. After Imam Maftir, by Yikalo Asamelach Shlomo. This is referring to when he's starting to build. He's busy with the Beis Hamikdash. It deals with every day what they brought on that day. It starts off mitzvah chukim and it goes ubachar, which is mitzvah chukim and bachar. Maftir by Yikalo Ismaisha Shlomo. And when Shlomo finished, this is when Shlomo finished the Beis Hamikdash. This is afterwards he gives them a bracha. Amar Rav Huna Amar Rav Shabbos Shachal Yes B'Chol Shamayid Beim Pesach Beim Besukas Mikri Karinan Re'ata. After Pesach at Tzamas Yiveshos, which is the story of the people who left early and they ended up getting wiped out by the Plishtim. Or Besukas B'Yayim Ba'Gai, which is they said the war is going to happen by Gog and Magog. The war of Gog and Magog is going to happen during Tishrei, which is Shaykhs to Sukkot, and the Gula itself is going to happen on Pesach, which has to do with Tzamas Yiveshos. V'chanukah ben Siyum, Maftir ben Eretz T'Zchaya, v'imekali shtei Shabbos. If there's 2 Shabbos Chanukahs, Kamaisa ben Eretz T'Zchaya, v'asrei ben Eretz Shlomo. Ben Eretz Shlomo is not the menorah, but they made a bunch of menorahs for the Beis Hamikdash. I think it wasn't just one menorah. It was just a bunch of other menorahs. The Purim by Yavai Malik Barashi Chadashim Barashi Chachechem B'Chaydesh Shechal Yis B'Shabbos. What do? Maftir V'Haya Midei Chaydesh B'Chadshay. Chal Yis B'Echad B'Shabbos. If it falls out on Sunday, Ma'esmal Shabbos before Chaydesh Yulain. V'Emelai Yainesen Machar Chaydesh. Tomorrow is going to be Rosh Chaydesh. Amar Rav Huna Chaydesh of Shechal Liyis B'Shabbos Maftirin. Maftir, sorry. V'shchaydish av shechal liyas b'shavos. Maftir chadshechem ma'yadechem sana nafshi. Sana nafshi hayu alai l'tayrach. My hayu alai l'tayrach. What's the tayrach that Akash Baruch is talking about? Amar Akash Baruch loy dayin lehem liyisrael shechaytin. Not only did they sit in front of me, Ela shematrichen aisi leida ezel gezeir kasha avi alehem. I have to now be busy. Kilu kiviyachol like Akash Baruch was like Nebuch, like he sounds like he's a little like pressed for time that he has to like now figure out in the schedule how to punish us also. But this is the lashon Akash Baruch uses. B'teshav gufei my maftir and Amarav eichel eisel lezayna. Mikra might, I don't know why, but this is the only time that we say the Haftarah before the leaning. It's just interesting. Mikra might, Tanya Acherim Aimer, the Im Loisishmali, of Nasan Bar Yosef Amar, Ad Ana Yanatsuni Hamazet, the Yeshayim Ad Masay, the Ida Razais. Also, both of the last two had to do with I think all three had to do with the Miraglim. Amar Abaya, in the Nog, Alma, the Mikri, Yisrael Banim, Haftir, and Asayf Asifeh. The Rabbi has another. As the Rabbi says, there's two different. He has a different kriya and different mafta. My mother is ma'aser b'reishis menanimili. How do I know that you laying ma'aser b'reishis by my mother? It's amar Ami. It's menanimili. What shaychus? That's the question, because all these lanings that we said until now have obvious shaychus to the yom that we're reading. But what shaychus? The day of creation to the day of the my mother's, even though it happens to be on a Sunday. But what's the kesha between the Ma'aser Bereshis and the Mamadas? Why do we lean it by the Mamadas? Now, we're not leaning at all. If you tell me you lean it everywhere, so then okay, fine. So you're leaning Sunday on Sunday, and you lean Tuesday on Tuesday. But if you're leaning only Mamadas, then it has to have a shaykhs to the Mamadas, not just enough that it has shaykhs to Sunday. No, maybe Amar Rav Ami ilmoli Mamadas lein niskayim l'shemayim ba'aretz. If not for the Mamadas, the Kabbanis that we bring. The Mamadis is not the Kabbanis. The Mamadis is what we do during the Kabbanis. So, which is Hainu Hach. We're saying, if not for the Kabbanis that we have the Mamadis for, then the world would not, laying the sky Mishmayim Aretz, which is what we're referring to in the laning of the day. Shenema em loy berisi yoma v'layla, chuka Shemayim Aretz loy samti. V'chsiva yoma Hashem alekeim b'ma eda kiyeh rishena. How do I know how do I know that they're going to Yashin the land? Amar Avraham l'fnei Kadosh Baruch Hu Rebbeinu Shalom. Shemach Hashem Yisrael Chaytim l'fanav ve'ata Isa lehem kedar mabel kedar flaga. Maybe you're going to wipe them out like you did previously. Amar Loi Lav Amar l'fnei Rebbeinu Shalom. How do I know? Amar Loi Kechala Egla b'Shalosh. Just take a Egla that's a third born. It's referring to the Seder Kabbanis. Amar l'fanav Rebbeinu Shalom. Tinach b'zman shebizman d'shkayim. B'zman she'en b'zman d'shkayim. My ti aleichem. What are you going to do? Amar Loi Tikanti lehem Seder Kabbanis. Say the Kabbalah is called man shekarim behen malani aleim keilu makriven lefani carbon. If you lane the Seder Kabbanis, then it's like you did it. I'm Meichel and I'm going to Meichel all the Averis. The time is brought fine. So that's the connection. Hashem's the Kabbanis is the way that we know that we're not going to be wiped out. And if we are wiped out, then the whole bria falls apart. So the whole point of bria is us, and if we see things, the entire, and we're still able to stick around through our layers is through the Kabbalah. So that's the connection between the Amadas, which talks about Ma'aser Bereshis, and the Kabbalah, which is literally holding up the world. The Tainas brachas v'klalis, ve'em afsikim v'klalis, minan amili. What's the reason? Why? How do I know you're not allowed to be mafsik by klalis? Amar Rav Achia bar Gamda Amar Ravasi Damakra Musa Hashem b'ni al tidmais. Do not be disgusted from Hashem's Musa. So Hashem in the Teichah is telling us all the bad things that are going to happen to us. Chas if we don't listen. So don't be disgusted by it. In other words, don't stop in the middle and say, I can't hear this anymore. I have to leave. So do not bench. You're not going to make a bracha on praniya. So it's not a din. He says it's not a problem of walking away. It's a problem. The next guy that comes, he's going to have to make a bracha. He makes a bracha on Torah, and then run into a bunch of really horrible things. So this is different than because is when something already happens. Then I have to recognize that everything is for good. But if something never happened, I'm not mechuyev to bench on something that never happened, that might never happen. That's not the din of dayan emes. That's not a bracha on the ra. That's stop making a bracha on something that's really horrible. Elaheshi aved, what should you do? Tana, we learn kashu masim pasuk shalapim. You start at least one pasuk before, and kashu misayim pasuk shalachim. So you're not starting with a bracha. You're not bringing a bracha on gnai on something that's so gnai, and you're not leaving the middle like kilu you had enough. Amar Abaye loishanu ela b'kali shabataris kainam. Avakali shabmishra taira paisik. That's only in Vayikra, but in Devarim you are allowed to be paisik. My time halalu b'lashin rabim aymas u'mayshim piyad gevura amar. In Parshas in Chumash Vayikra it says b'lashin rabim, and Hakadosh Baruch Hu is repeating it as a shliach from Hakadosh Baruch Hu. And Moshe is just saying what is going to happen, but he's not a shliach in that sense, the same way that he is when he said it in Vayikra. Levi Barbuti have a kakari become a gamgim, kamei the Ravunim Ba'arurei. He was blaming the clause, and he saw that he wanted to stop. Amalai, I can afshach. I can afshach. Do whatever you want. If you don't want to go, you don't have to. If you don't want to continue, don't. Obviously, when Levi was doing this, he was doing it in Mishnah Torah. He was doing it in Devarim. Tanya, Rab Shimon was Aimer Ezotik, and then he saw Shu Karim Kalalai Shabbatayis Kainim Kaidim Atzeres before Atzeres before Shu Shalaim the clause of Vayikra why? My time. He had this idea like let the year end, let the close end, let it all end. Like let's a new era, a good time. The good times ahead. This time because it's right before Shoshana. Shoshana is literally the beginning of the year. Up to Atzeres Shoshani, everything we're in. Atzeres not Shoshani, the Tanan, about Atzeres Al Peiros Elan, but Atzeres Shuas is Rosh Hashanah. It's Rosh Hashanah for Peiros Elan, so therefore it has the Indian of Rosh Hashanah, so it's this Indian still fits. Tanim Shem Ben Elazar Aimer in Yoimru L'Chazakanim Star Sesar V'Ladim B'nei. If wise people tell you to destroy, and young people tell you to, inexperienced people tell you to build, starve out in that, then destroy and don't build. The destruction from wise counsel is building, and building from foolish counsel is destroying. The similar davar and remembrance for this thing is Rechavam ben Shlomo. Shlomo's son Rechavam. He was advised by the old people to give in to the people and to be a little bit more lenient. And his friends or the younger crew said, no, you have to show him who's boss, and you have to be chazak. And it ended up leading, and he followed his friends, and ended up leading to a big revolt, which caused a lot of damage. Wherever you stop, a Shabbos and Shacharis, that's where you lay mincha. But mincha karin b'sheni. So in other words, after Shabbos, it's not arbitrary, but when you finish laying Shabbos, the end of the Pasha, then you pick up mincha. So in other words, you start mincha the next Shabbos, the next parasha you start mincha. But mincha sham karim b'sheni. Wherever you finish mincha, so let's say you lay until sheni, whatever the seder was there. If you lay until sheni during mincha, then you start from sheni on sheni, and then b'sheni karim b'chamishi. And then wherever you finish off on Monday, you start on Thursday. And then b'chamishi shem karim l'Shabbos haba, and then the following Shabbos is wherever you left off from Thursday. So you only lay in each pasuk in the Torah once, because by mincha you do part of it, Monday you do part of it, Thursday you do part of it, and Shabbos you do the rest. Now we learned already Mishnah like that, but this is the Rebbe Meir. Yehuda Aimer, welcome Shemav Sikin b'Shabbos Shachris Sham karim b'mincha b'Sheni b'chamishi l'Shabbos haba. So he's saying that that's all three. Wherever you finish Shabbos, no, it's the end of the parsha. You lane from there on mincha and Monday and Thursday, and the Shabbos again. You start from there again all four times: Shabbos, Monday, Thursday, Shabbos. Mincha, whatever. Mincha. No, it's that afternoon. Mincha. Monday, Thursday, and then Shabbos again. You start from the same place, which is the beginning of the next parsha. Amar Rav Zeira halacha makam shavsikim Shabbos shachar sham karin v'mincha b'sheni b'shachamishi v'Shabbos haba, like we do. Fighting Gemara lema halacha. Did you say it's halacha like we do? Then save all these words. The Gemara shum the ipcha lehu. He heard it in the reverse. Now maybe he heard it in both ways, so he didn't want to say one name, or when we repeated it, we said it specifically because he said it a different way. But it gets it. He heard it the reverse. He heard it that Rabbi Yehuda said that you pick up where you left off, and you only learn each pasuk once. You just continue down the line, and he wants that, but he held not like that. So he held like halachas of Meir the way he understood the Meir, but it's halachas like Rabbi Yehuda the way we had Rabbi Yehuda. No, but Pesach v'Raya. So this is the Gemara is going to go through now how to operate the Torah, how to handle the Torah during laning and during Hagbah, etc. You open. You see what you're up to, you close it, and you make a bracha. And then obviously you have to open it up and continue reading. You see you open it up, you see what's going on, and you make a bracha, and then you read straight. At my time, the mayor, the person who gets that aliyah, they used to have him a turban. Someone knows after the Chazan read after the Balkari read a pasuk, the Metagim would translate it into Aramaic, and the person who's reading, the person who's the Baal Kaira, it should not help the Metagim. If the guy forgets a word or he's fumbling, he shouldn't help that. Why? You should not say that the Baal Kaira is reading from inside the klaf and he's saying over Targum. So Rabbi has the same chashash. If you're going to open up the Torah and read and make the brachas, you're going to think Amaretz is going to think that the brachas are written in the Torah. Now it's interesting. The gezer is that what's the big deal? So someone's going to think the psukim in the Torah, the brachas in the Torah, no, because it's going to come. This guy's going to write it. So we're dealing with an Amaretz, which is also a cipher. It's interesting gezerah, but I'm saying the whole thing is interesting. The guy Mamash, he knows how to write a Sefer Torah, but the only thing he doesn't know is whether he should put Baruch Hu in there. It's just an interesting idea. Rabbi Yehuda Targum Ikar Lemitai Brachas Laka Lemitai. There's no Targum. He's going to make a mistake. Brachas, he's not going to make a mistake. There's two explanations for that either, because sometimes there is Targum in the Torah. There are a couple of words. Like we had Yigasa Dusa is by Lavan and Yaakov. That there is a little bit of Targum over there. So it's a legitimate concern. And the other option is like Rabbi Yehuda says that there's brachas. There's 7 sets of brachas in the Torah. Is the person really going to think that there's brachas scattered throughout the klaf? It's not so mustava. This is the two reasons that I saw what the nafkamin is. Amar Rav Zeir Amar Rav Masna Amar Rav Zeir Amar Rav Masna halacha pesach v'roy mevarich v'kayir. You should open it, see it, make a bracha, and then read without closing it back up in the middle. He heard it reversed, same thing we said before. The luchas and bimais do not have kedusha, tashmish kedusha do not have to be buried. So bimais is the bima of when when they do the hakel. But Rashi over here is very important. Rashi says, Luchais lo yadati. I don't know what it is. Mahin. He says, "After it's maybe like the cover of the book, which is not the pages, but it's the cover that holds everything together." Not everyone likes that because it's mamish tashmish kedusha. It doesn't really. There's Rishonim don't like that. They say maybe it's part of the bima. It's like the boards, the planks of the bima. Okay. Shfatia Amarav Yechanan Hagoyel Sefer Torah Tzarich She'amidu Ala Tefra. You have to make sure it ends up where the seam is between the two rolls. And the reason for this is that you should see if it's pulled too tight, and if it pulls too tight, it should rip on the seam. It shouldn't chalila rip in the middle of the cloth. Amarav Shfatia Amarav Yechanan Hagoyel Sefer Torah Goyel Mivachutz. Then Goyel Mivafnim. Now this refers to someone who's doing a solo job. He doesn't have help, so he's rolling. So if he rolls like this, which is this is Mifnim, and the one that's going to be on my knee is going to be Bat Mevachotz. If he rolls like this, then the one on my knee could just roll off and end up on the floor. So we don't want that. So you have to roll from the outside, and then this one's automatically protected. Because when you're rolling it up, then you roll it from the inside. Presumably you have to hold it, but if you roll it up this way, you're blocking the Sefer Torah from the ksav from being read, which is something we try to avoid. And you go to the finish. If 10 people are laying tire, which means not that 10 people get aliyas necessarily, but that it's laying in a minyan. The biggest one should lay, the greatest person should get galila, which is really refers to Hagba. Now, if you know the minhagim of Chabad, does their Galila, their Hagba is really Galila also. So it actually stems much better with the Lashon Galila. Everyone knows Galila is Hagba, but why is it called Galila? Because you're Goyla. But by Chabad, they're Goyla by themselves, not the Goyla. And the Goyla is just, he just dresses the Tivitari with the, he just puts on the mantle. And Goyla, he takes the schar of all of them. The Amar of Yeshua ben Levi Asar Shakar B'Taya Agada Sefer Taya Kibla Schar Kulam. In fact, the Gemara Schar Kulam Sagad. He takes everyone's schar, and the Gemara Ela Ema Kibla Schar Kineged Kulam. He gets equivalent schar. Amar of Shvati Amar of Yechanan. Menayin Shemishtamshin Bevaskal. How do you know you're allowed to heed the words of a baskal? You're allowed to act based off a baskal that you hear. Shnemar V'Adnecha Tishmana Dav Me'acharecha. If you hear something that's behind you, so it's referring to a baskal, and you're allowed to act on that. Lamar, I'm sorry, that's the end of the passage. That's only when you hear the sound of a man in the city and a woman in the field, and the reason for that is because that's not where they're commonly found. So if you hear a woman in the field, you could assume that it's not just a passing someone who's talking there, and it's something that's out of the ordinary that you could rely on. Huda Amar Hin Hin. That has to be dafka that it says Hin Hin, a double lashon like that. That's how you know that it's a baskal that you can listen to. Huda Amar Lav Lav, or if it says Lav Lav, no, it has to repeat. It has to repeat its message. Amar Rav Shvati Amar Yechanan Kol Akar B'Lei Neima V'Shayim B'Lei Zimra All Lakasav Aymer V'Gamani. If you read without the chop, or you learn Mishnayos without a niggin, all of Lakasav Aymer V'Gamani Nesati Land Chukim Loy Tayva. I'm going to put on you very bad decrees. Because he doesn't have a good voice, he's not musically inclined. He has to get these judgments that he's not able to live with. This is what he deserves. If two Talmidei Chacham live in the city and they're not able to deal with each other, with halacha, because they have an opportunity here to increase limud Torah and to come up with a better shot and to be managed the city properly, and they're fighting, and everyone they're in their own space. Amar Rav Parnach, Amar Rav Yechanan, if someone grabs Sefer Torah Aram means bare-handedly, not that he's undressed. Nikbar Aram, he gets buried Aram without tachrichem. He deserves such a strong punishment that he's going to be buried completely Aram because he touched the cloth for a minute. Nikbar Aram below mitzvahs. He's going to have zero. He's not going to have any mitzvahs. He loses all his mitzvahs because he touched the cloth. Ela Amar, again, this is just, I don't understand this. The Gemara's Havamina is that Aram below mitzvahs is not as bad as Aram without tachrichem. That's a very interesting Havamina, right? The Gemara says without tachrichem. The Gemara says it can't be that bad. It has to be not so bad. It has to be that he just doesn't have any mitzvahs. Like I would say lahepach. Okay, we should be saying to not be Aram, not from tachrichem, not be from mitzvahs. Fine. Below mitzvahs. So below mitzvahs, he loses all mitzvahs. He touched the cloth. Ela Amar Abaye. No, nikbar Aram below eisenitza. He loses that mitzvah. Now, Taisus points out that it doesn't just mean that mitzvah of touching the Sefer Torah or of handling the Sefer Torah properly because he didn't do it. So what's the chiddush over there? If I tell you that someone who doesn't give tzedakah is buried without the mitzvah tzedakah, okay, he didn't do the mitzvah, he doesn't get the mitzvah. What's the chiddush? So it says that if he's laning, and because of his laning, he touches Sefer Torah Aram, he loses the mitzvah of that laning because he did that. That's the power of touching it. And again, this whole thing is really a gezerah that you shouldn't. It's mitami yadayim. I think it's a gezerah. I don't think it's. I think it's the Rabbanan, like it's a fine, and so that just points out that it's not just the mitzvah of handling Sefer Torah properly; it's any mitzvah that he's in Isaac with at the time. Amar Rav Yanai, Rav Yanai, Amar Rav Yanai, Rav Yanai Saba, Mishmei the Rav Yanai Rabba, Mutal Tigalel We have a mantle that's just a cloth that you just put on, like a coat that we put a command just like straight on. But if you have an open cloth that you have to wrap the Sefer Torah around, you don't wrap the Sefer Torah around it. You don't start off one end and you roll the Sefer Torah into it. You put the Sefer Torah, keep the Sefer Torah stationary, and wrap the Sefer Torah, like, for example, a baby. I don't say lavdo, but take a baby, you don't wrap the baby and roll it into the crib with the blanket. You put the baby in the middle, and then you wrap the blanket around the baby. So this we had at the end of the Mishnah, explaining why we have to do all these clears on their times. Hilchas Pesach b'Pesach, Hilchas Atzeres b'Atzeres, Hilchas Chag b'Chag, Hadin alach b'nei ha'ir, B'Selika la Meseches Megillah. Shkayach.